Good evening, everyone, and welcome to NMP Talk Show. And we're happy to have you this evening. Um, we have a special guest today who we're going to have a chat. It's only the two of us. Unfortunately, our co-host is unable to connect due to what is common in South Africa, load shedding. But we're not going to blame it for now. Our discussion this evening is about careers. Remember when you were at school, you had to choose a career, and some of the courses that you have to go through and select that will determine or will become a springboard to your dream career. But a lot of things are happening way after. So this is the discussion that we want to have with you, and we have an expert on our show. Her name is Mandisa Mtembu. Mandisa, welcome to our show. You can unmute yourself there.
Thank you,
There
Neo.
you
Good
go.
evening to you and
Yes.
to the listeners. I'm happy to be here. And yeah, I think to have this very important conversation and relevant around how our careers, our career choices, in fact, the whole journey, right? From like choosing your career, being in your career, and sometimes even finding yourself needing to make some changes within your career, how
Yes.
all of that plays such a significant role in our mental health and our mental well-being.
Yes. Just before we jump into this beautiful discussion, can I call it beautiful discussion?
I think so. Yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
it will change, hopefully it will change people's minds. But tell us about you. What do you do? I'm sure the audience would like to know your background and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, and I think I will talk more about my own career journey throughout this session. But yeah, I think in short, I'm a psychological counselor by training. So I study psychology. I'm qualified and I can provide one on one counseling to people of all ages. I work in the education sector and I work within a school currently. I'm the director of student well-being, which is a fancy way of saying I care deeply about the well-being of young people. And so every day I wake up and that's what I think about. I think about what the students need, what do we need to put in place, what resources in terms of their physical well-being, their mental well-being, do we need to improve? Do we need to bolster so that they can succeed within the high school environment? Hopefully, in hopes that we prepare them for the real world and give them the coping tools and skills, and just also reassure them that like whatever you're going through is not uncommon and therefore can be handled and doesn't have to get in the way of your success. And I firmly believe that intervening at the teenage or adolescent stage is like the ideal. It's like the sweet spot because that's where,
Yeah.
if you remember Neo, right, that's where you're developing, right? You can reason, you can think, you can argue, you can talk back to your parents, but at the same time what that means is that you are becoming intelligent. It means that you are starting to see the world in more color. You're seeing choice, you're seeing option, and it's a dangerous world out there. It's a scary world. So you can't be left completely to yourself. That's why we still put parameters, even if you're 18, even if you're 17 and you feel like an adult. There are still these parameters and rules that the school environment provides or puts in place to help you to, as you're exploring your mind, to really just have the tools to make the right choices, to practice making decisions, and then to actually see the outcome of a good decision process versus a poor decision process, right? So that's my job. I really just, I think about this stuff all the time. And I have a team that thinks with me and implements this with me. So I'm not alone to do this daunting task. Yeah, so that's what I do.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work. It's a
Yes.
lot of work. I mean, to be honest, I'm I'm low key
Yeah.
tired right now, given the time of the year and the fact that I've been doing this the whole
Mhm.
year. So um, I can't wait for the December holiday. But it's also very rewarding because I think when you see a young person who came in just like, you know, a buck in daylight, didn't know what to do. All of a sudden, like they are more steady, they are more calm, they are more thoughtful. They can tell you how much they've learned since they came to the school and started interacting with you or with someone in your team. And they can tell you how it's impacted them or how they've grown. Then that's when you're like, okay, there we go. Like it's not for nothing. It's actually making an impact. So a lot of work, but
You know,
very.
I wish
Mm-hmm.
I wish the time I was in high school, we had something similar to this. I mean, yeah, I don't want to give out my age, but then those ends of years that I was in my matric, there was a lot of confusion. I used to think that I want to follow this course of a career. I remember there was this course that was in an architecture, to be an architecture, um, and I also wanted to be in IT. I was just everywhere, and I
Mm.
didn't have that direction to say, okay, this is the course that you need to take because of your abilities, of your strengths. But we chose because of our friends choosing a course, and at that time maybe it's now new in the community, and you want to be the first, the pioneers of those cause. um, but later in years, then you start regretting taking that course, because now your work is giving you stress. Your career, it's like it's stagnant, it's not growing, you're not going anywhere. And now it affects your mental wellness, because now you're stressed about it, you don't want to go to work. You, you're looking forward to weekends. Maybe even if you like your job, you also want looking forward to weekends. But imagine looking forward to weekends because you don't like your
Yeah.
job or
Yeah.
the career. So I wish we had, this structure. But from those that already have passed, how many years have you been in this industry?
Um, I would say 10 years. Yeah.
10 years. So in that 10 years, have students or ex-students come back to say, thank you for that guidance. I love my career. I'm thriving on it. Have they come back to you, and how does that make you feel?
Yes. So students do come back. So fortunately, it's not a completely thankless job that we do. But I
Mhm.
think what we hear a lot is not, I found my career and I'm thriving there, but it's like, it's thank you for helping me to be able to handle whatever situation I find myself in. So a
Mhm.
former student recently actually wrote to me and said, I quit my job because I remembered what you said, that my well-being is more important than the check that I'm getting from the job. So I've taken a step back. I've
Yeah.
resigned because I
Mm.
actually need to take care of myself and figure out where can I go where actually I'm not going to feel like I'm sacrificing my mental health for employment. And I think for me that was a win
Yeah.
because I felt like you heard more than just career guidance and pick this path and go and then you're thriving. You actually heard that it's not successful. You're not successful just because you have a fat salary in the bank every month. You're successful because at the end of the day, when you've done your work, when you've been to the office, whether you are remote or in person, you are not sacrificing any important part of yourself for this job. So that recent correspondence actually made me feel quite happy with what we do, but also quite proud of this young person who I remember was very anxious when they were making the decision about what to do. The decision of choosing a university was anxiety provoking. She didn't know if she wanted to stay in the country or go abroad. And then, but eventually made a decision, or the decision found its way, and so we had to think about, okay, some decisions are out of our hands, but what do we have control over? That's ourselves. That's
Mm.
how we show up in these spaces. And that's how we use these opportunities. So she went on to do really well in university, got a job actually at Twitter, the social media company. And then 2 years in, she was like, I actually
By the way, we're streaming to Twitter as we're speaking, eh?
we love you, Twitter, we do, but
Yeah,
some work environments now are not for everyone, and that's the thing that young people
yeah,
don't seem to be aware of. Is that not everyone is going to thrive at Twitter at that fast pace of creating um,
mm,
code and
content.
whatever it is that and content, right? Not everyone's going to thrive in a school environment where you have to stand in front of young people and shape their minds and teach every day and grade and be a coach and be a mentor. Not everyone's going to thrive in a hospital either, where you take care of sick people and bring them back to their health and so forth. So we are not um, the same piece of you know puzzle piece that we can fit wherever,
Mm.
right? We're not, we're different. So as you're choosing your career, think about that. Think about where, if I'm choosing IT, what do I know about that industry? What is required, like physically, of the person in that industry? It's
Mm.
long hours hunched on a computer, right? Either you're writing code or you're testing code or whatever you're doing, right? Do I have the capacity, the mental capacity to take on that kind of, you know, almost monotone, but like long hours of work? Or am I a dynamic person? Do I need to stand in front of people and hear ideas? Do I feed off other people's energy and their ideas? um, am I an introvert and being around too many people just like affects my productivity and my mind slows down and I can't think fast enough because the environment is feeling pressured. So do I need a quieter place of work, and therefore perhaps am I better as an administrator versus a facilitator of certain, things. So thinking about that, like checking your personality, checking and learning about the careers, because as you said earlier, a lot of us chose the careers that we're in because it was the cool thing to be at the time. I wanted to be the
Yeah,
first one to do it, kokasi, whatever your reason was, right? But it wasn't really about you. It
yeah,
was about like the outside, you know.
yeah,
But now
yeah,
we are not there
yeah.
anymore. We have to unshackle ourselves from that pressure of needing to be the first doctor in my street. It's okay. Maybe I don't have the mental capacity to deal with sick patients, 7 years of school, 2 years of practice. I just don't have it. So I'm not going to go that
Now,
path.
Mandy,
Mm,
with the experience that you have, I just want us to categorize our topics.
sure.
And so let me steer it this way. You have
Hmm.
a student coming into your office to say, I don't know what they call you, ma'am or whoever.
Miss
And
Mandisa.
then they say, I need help. Oh, they call you Mandisa. Okay.
Mm,
Mandisa, I need to choose a career and I don't know what to do. What are the steps that you follow? Are you at liberty to share with us, to tell us how do you help a child choose a good career?
mm. So, firstly, we state that the purpose is not to help you choose a good career. Okay, you make that decision, right?
Hmm,
Our purpose is to help you
hmm,
identify areas where you are likely to succeed based on your
okay.
interests, based on your skills, right? And based on your personal needs. Okay. So then we do
Mm.
a series of assessments that look at, so what are you skilled at? What are your natural abilities, and capabilities, right? And then we also look at, okay, so what are your personal needs, right? Some kids are very upfront. They're like, look, at home we are struggling, so I need to get a good job so that I can help my mom, right? Okay, that's a very good thing to be clear about as well, right? Not hide it from yourself, even that,
Mm.
hey, part of why I'm doing this is so that I can give back, you know. And then we look at things like, okay, so what are you prone? What are the kind of things that attract you or draw you, right? When things get tense and pressured, what is your default response? Do you shut down, or are you the kind of person who can bounce back quite quickly from difficulties? Because then we have to look at the careers and the sectors. Actually, let me put it like that. We look at the sectors or the industries from that lens. That
Mm.
in the education industry or sector, right, there is a lot of like consistency in what you do. You're gonna wake up every day, go teach, come back, grade, repeat, teach, grade, repeat. Can you handle that kind of environment? Do you have the abilities and the inclination to connect, to interact with people like that? Repeatedly over and over for at least 300 300 days, before you go on holiday, right? We look at, for example, the medical field, and we say, look, this is a broad field, but it is, you're required to be quite adept at science and scientific thinking and engaging with research. Is that the kind of stuff you're interested in? Can you see yourself sitting in front of a science book for 7 years, just studying it over and over and over and getting deeper and deeper into the way the human body is
I don't
built
see
and
myself
functions?
doing that.
Okay, then we say to you, now, well, then maybe that's not the path for you to go in, right? But if you're still inclined towards helping people, we can think about medical administration, right? There
Mm.
are other ways to still be in the medical field, so impacting people's lives without being the
Mm.
doctor in front of them. So that's the process. It's just looking at
Yeah.
like your interests, your skills, your personal needs, right? Your motivations, and trying to bring all of that to draw a picture
Mm.
of, here's what's likely. It's never a perfect picture. There's somewhere where we have to say, you know what, I won't make enough money to build my mother a million rand house, but you know what, I can make different decisions around that and still be able to give back and support her, right? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if that's clear.
All right. If you just join us, we're streaming live to Riverside FM. This is the platform that we're on, and we're also streaming live to Twitter, to Facebook, and also Telegram. So if you just join us, welcome. We're talking about careers. The career path that you take has an impact on your mental wellness. So we talking to Mandisa, who's explaining on how you can help your child choose a good career and how you can identify which career that most likely would suit them. So, Mandisa, let's move on. Let's change gears. Right, I've chosen a career, and I'm working on this career or this job
Mm,
for however many years that I'm on. I'm not finding any joy in it. I'm actually more depressed working than not.
mm,
So how do you now change your path? How would you suggest somebody to change their path? Would you sit with them and then have this one-on-one conversation with them, or what is the thing that they can do,
mm.
to help them?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a reality for many people, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing to do, um, is to assess your personal situation. So hopefully you don't have too
Mm.
many people that are dependent on you, because that's a big factor, right? That you have to consider in terms
True.
of changing careers. That, hey, am I going to resign and like stop making income, or reduce my income? How will that impact those who depend on me? Right. So
Mm.
that's the first thing to look at. Is just like what is your personal situation like right now? But and then we move out from that and we move in, and now we look at, okay, what is actually happening? Why are you feeling depressed? Why are you feeling low motivation? Why are you feeling lack of enthusiasm for your work? Has this always been the situation, or is it new? Is it a new thing? Has it always been there? Did it start recently? Did something change in the workplace that maybe is triggering it, or has led to you
Mm.
feeling like this? So once we get a clear understanding of that, then we look at, perhaps sometimes you are feeling like you've lost motivation because you're not sure what value you're adding, you know and people don't realize this, that if you feel like you're not adding value, that can make you quite depressed and low
Different.
motivated, right?
Mm.
So it's when we feel like we're adding value in our workplace, in our career, we actually like don't even need an alarm to get us out of bed, because we're clear on, like, you look, I have a purpose here. Like, if I'm not here, something is missing. So what I
Mm.
say to somebody who's feeling like they are no longer aligned in terms of their purpose and what they are doing is step back and try and remember, what are you passionate about? Okay. What are you skilled at? Okay. And then lastly, what are people willing to pay you for? So think
Mm.
of that as like three circles. Um, like those Audi circles, but draw them as
Yeah.
three circles, right? So they must
Triangular.
overlap.
Okay.
They must
Oh.
overlap. So what am I skilled at? What am I passionate, or what do I care about? And then lastly, what will people pay me for, right? Once you have those circles, I don't know if you can see them. Shame, my table writes it, right? Once you have those three circles, here, this is the sweet spot, right? That's the thing you're gonna do, right? So where is it? Where am I gonna be paid for what I care about and what I'm skilled at? That's the sweet spot.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean look for a job outside of your company. Perhaps internally there is a position, there is a project, there is a new initiative that speaks to those things, that you can then raise your hand and say, hey, can I please be part of this? I think it'll be good for my growth, and it speaks to what I care about and am good at. Sometimes we're depressed in the workplace um, because we just made the wrong choice. We thought being a
Yeah.
doctor would work, and now here we are, and we are just not happy. The money is
7
good,
years later.
but it doesn't fill that part of me that is just unsatisfied, unhappy, you know. And they, again, we step back and we say, why did you get drawn to this career? But also, since you've been here, right? You've been practicing for 2 or 3 years, right? What have you enjoyed about this? If anything, like, what have you found pleasure in or satisfaction in, right? And there we start to see again the piece around, what do I care about in this space? What are people willing to pay me for, right? And that's where we talk about like pivoting. So you can pivot within the sector and maybe go and become a lecturer. Actually, I really enjoy like figuring out this whole thing about diseases and how they work and how they multiply. But when I see a patient who is sick with this disease, I'm not happy. I get depressed. Maybe I can go lecture,
Mm.
you know. So
Okay.
it requires courage. It's not easy to own up so that you're unhappy, and it can make you very anxious and scared for your future, and therefore, and that's something, it requires courage, because the courage is what you need to
Yeah.
say, let's actually stop the bus for a bit. I'm not saying I'm going to jump off the bus, but let's just stop it a little bit. Can I think? you know can I reevaluate?
You mentioned something very important there. Before one makes that decision, to see if you have dependents, then it also complicates the process, isn't it? Because now, if you're changing gears, if you're changing career paths, starting a new one, you might not start at the salary that you leaving the other one with. That was enough to take care of the family. Now you're starting a new one, no salary, or maybe you're now going to entrepreneurship, and
Mm.
no, entrepreneurship is difficult. It takes years and years, for businesses to take off. And eventually, when they start taking off, a lot of possibly damage is there already. And that's one risk that somebody needs to think of before they change their career path. Now, you have changed the career path now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting off, maybe let's say in your case things are going very well for you, but how does one manage their mental wellness? Because we're talking about all of this, redirecting it to our mental wellness.
Mm.
Our
Yes.
mental wellness, our health, is very important.
Yep.
um, would you say to somebody, maybe take a sabbatical but still remain in the same career, just to refresh, to reset, and then come back and then start the bus and go? uh, would you do that?
Mm.
Would
So,
that be something that one can be advised?
okay. So I think the first, so the first thing I want to go back to that point you made about making the decision, and you mentioned entrepreneurship, and if entrepreneurs are listening here, I really want to say to them, like, I
I'm
know what I know for sure. Yeah, yeah, here you are. What I know for sure is
listening.
that we have taken for granted the toll that being a running your own thing, starting your own thing has on mental health. You know, being an
Yes.
entrepreneur can be quite lonely, because you're the
Yeah.
one who's making all the decisions, thinking about all the things, and therefore you are sitting with all the anxiety, you are sitting with all the
Mm,
stress, you are sitting with all the
mm,
rejections or the failures, right? And all those things compound, and can lead to things
mm,
like depression,
mm,
generalized anxiety, um,
mm.
and even trigger like a, a sense of grief, because you might feel like you miss your old life, that you gave up thinking that this would work out, so that there's a loss, so please, 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 entrepreneurs, do not suffer in silence, right? Speak to a professional. Take advantage of free, platforms for mental health, because what you're doing is both brave, but also both quite taxing, on mental well-being. So I wanted to just say that because I think that's worth noting there. And then
Thank
your
you.
question is, so now I've moved and it's working out, but I need to take care of my mental health, and so what do I do now, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think the first thing is, that we have to do is to always, how at work they make you do an end of year review. You must do your own review at the end of each year, right? This year that I've been working at the same company doing the few or multiple tasks and responsibilities that I've been doing, right? If I were to do a ratio, right? How much have I been giving versus what I've been getting out? And if that
Mm,
ratio is off, and by off I mean you are giving quite a bit, you're working long hours, you're putting in weekends, you're working late into the night, you're beginning your days earlier than everybody else. But when you look at what you're getting out, and it can even include your salary, you're not happy with your salary. It's not making sense. It's not covering your bills, but you're putting in all this work. Or you have become so much more anxious now when you think about work. When you open your email, when you hear the sound of Outlook, or Teams, in the background, your heart starts to beat. 10,000 times a rate an
computations.
hour, then you're getting more than you're getting. Something is off. Something is off balance, right? Now it's time to think about what is off balance. Why am I feeling like this? And sometimes we are the challenge to ourselves. We are not taking time off. We are not actually taking the leave days that are owed to us, right? We all have leave days. We're not taking them. If you're an entrepreneur, you are not creating a leave system for yourself. You're just working round the
Mm,
clock, 7 days a week, 365, right? No, right? So sometimes we are the challenge, right? And there's many reasons why people don't take leave or don't stop working, right? A lot of sometimes it's things that are like inadequacy or feeling like if I don't work, I won't be seen, I will lose my job, and sometimes it is a toxic work environment, and we can unpack that on another day, right? But we have to
mm.
also look at ourselves first, like how am I contributing to my challenges. Do I have a workout routine? I can't spend all my time at work. Perhaps before I start work, I go for a 5 kilometer walk around my neighborhood. Then I go into the office. Do I have mindful practices that I do before I begin the workday, during the workday, when I end the workday? And then, of course, there's things that the other party can do as well, which is the employer. So it's things like, is my employer asking more of me than what we agreed upon when I signed the contract? Can I bring this to their attention so that we can adjust everything accordingly? If I'm being asked to do more, I should be getting paid more. I should be getting a few more benefits to make this make sense, right? But also, I should also be able to say, actually, I don't think I'm capable of giving any more than I'm already giving. So please, can we hire somebody else to do this work? Because sometimes we say yes to a whole other job. You get given a project that is literally a whole other job, and you think, oh, I'm doing more, I'm showing that I'm a hard worker, but actually you are doing the work of two people, and so you are going to be very thin, you are going to be unwell. So it's a holistic approach. It's not just the employer is wrong, the employee is right, or the entrepreneur is not taking care of themselves, the market is not responding well. It's holistic. We have to look at both sides. And again, I use the word courage, like it's courageous to stop and do that, because I use the word courage because I think reflecting is often is a luxury. Many of us are too busy. We have kids, we have this, there's no time to stop and think. So it's courageous to draw that boundary, to say to your spouse, to say to your children, to say to your family, hey guys, I need a time out just to think about myself a little bit and where I am and what I need. And then I'll come back and tell you what I've discovered and where you can support me or where you fit in.
That's very interesting. You highlighting very important points, and just you thinking about people that you know around you, that you see that they're not happy with their occupation or their career path, but you don't know how to help them, right?
Mhm.
And how can you now um, help somebody that you see that they're going this path of burnout, they're going this path, or maybe they are on the path of burnout? How can you assist those people?
Yeah, unfortunately, burnout is as common as the cold now. Um,
Hmm.
and I think the first thing to help somebody identify, help someone cope with burnout, firstly is just to, excuse me, firstly is just to help them to be aware of what's happening. Right?
Hmm.
So, are you dreading to go to work? You know, perhaps before you wake up and be excited to go to work, but now you're just like dreading it. You're dragging yourself there. When you are there, you are easily distracted. You can't focus. You feel tired all the time. right? All these different signs of burnout, right? So just firstly, like
mm,
getting, like doing that checklist. Where are you on the checklist? How many of these things do you tick yes to, right? And if I'm taking yes to at least even three of those things, then I am at risk of or already on the path of burnout, as you said, right? Now,
mm,
burnout really just means that there are things that I could have done differently throughout the year that I didn't do. And now they are catching up with me. You know, there was that time where I went on leave, but actually I continued working even though I was on leave.
mm,
Or there was that time when I should have been on leave or should have taken leave and I didn't take it, you know. Or there was the time when I was on sick leave and I continued to work even though I was supposed to be offline, you know. Or my boss or my team have been adding things onto my plate and I haven't been saying no thanks. So I've had poor boundaries. All these things I'm describing are indicators of poor boundaries. You know, either I've had poor boundaries with myself or with others that I interact with. Right. So we
mm.
have to see what the root cause is so that we don't repeat this mistake, you know. And then once
Yeah.
we diagnose burnout, you have to stop, right? You have to ask for time off. You have to, and then during that time off, you have to actually do things that help you to heal. Because burnout is like a wound, you know. And if you don't actually stop and think about how to treat it, you could make it worse, you know. So you have to stop now. So, like for example, a good way to deal with burnout is to kind of say, okay, I'm going to take 5 days off, right? And in those 5 days, I'm going to firstly make sure I get good quality sleep, and that's like a good night's
Yes.
rest that's
Rest.
uninterrupted, which means I'm not struggling to fall asleep. I'm not struggling to stay asleep, right? And I don't have to wake up at 3 o'clock anymore. Right? I can sleep in a little bit, but I sleep until my body feels well rested. And then when I wake up, I have things to do that I look forward to. So either I read a book that I enjoy, a chapter or two. I have a good breakfast. Maybe I fit in some kind of movement. You know, I don't want to call it exercise, but just movement. You know, maybe it's a walk around your complex or your neighborhood.
Mm,
Or it's dancing to your favorite song, or it's dancing along somebody on YouTube on some move, but just movement, you know, because our bodies and our minds are very connected, you know. And then, of
yes.
course, somewhere in the day as well to rest again. So just switching off that deadline and chasing the clock pace and really slowing things down, you know, socializing with people who will make you feel, who upbuild you, you know, and spending time with your children if you have children and just like laughing and playing with them. So really taking away the chore out of your daily activities, right?
The rat, eh?
The exactly getting out of the rut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. But it's not too easy now, especially these days that we have technology at our disposal. We have internet everywhere we go. Our phones have emails.
Yeah.
It's not easy to disconnect from work. And I found that if you have those applications installed on your phone, it means you're carrying your office everywhere you go. And when do you switch off? There
That's
is
so
no way
true.
you can switch off. If you're browsing your social media and you see your a pop up
Notification.
there, notification
I'm gonna
deadline.
tell you, I'll tell you
Wow.
my secrets. I don't have my notifications on any of my work or personal apps. So for example, my Instagram does not tell me when somebody has liked my picture. I have to deliberately log into the app to see that. Otherwise, I don't know. My
Wow.
Outlook, same. I don't have those
Mm,
notifications on, so I can't see an email come in, right? I have to click on it to open it to see how many emails I've received in the last hour, right?
So
Now,
basically what you're doing, do you schedule your time that this time, this is when you check your emails, or you check your WhatsApp or whatever, and then
exactly.
by doing that you're able to manage your time and the pressure. Let's say if you have a deadline, you're able to work on that deadline without any interruptions.
Exactly. But also, no,
Mm,
yes, I'm productive, but also I'm intentional, right? I can see myself grabbing
mm,
the phone, going to the app, clicking open. And if it's a Sunday, 10 o'clock in the morning, I can say, hold on, what are you doing? You know, stop. But if the
mm,
email is already in, it's too late. And I'm already seeing it go
mm,
playing on my, it's too late. Now I want to see what it says because also I have anxiety. So now I want to see what it says and I want to respond.
mm,
Whereas if I
mm,
have to click on the app to have it open, actually I get to be a lot more thoughtful, you know. And that is me setting boundaries with myself as well. Because I know myself that if once I start going on work, I won't stop. So before I even get started, I create a little gate, that I have to go through first. And as I walk through the gate, I can stop myself and say, no, Mandisa, it's actually a Sunday. There's no need to open this email, you know.
yeah. Gosh.
Or it's 8 p.m. Even though it's a weekday, it's 8 p.m. No, it can wait. If it's urgent, people will call. They won't email you. You know. So just setting those boundaries with yourself and using technology to benefit yourself, right? All these
Yeah.
fancy phones we have, these smartphones, they've got do not disturb functions, they've got sleep mode functions, they've got busy
Mm,
functions. So when you're asleep, your phone doesn't ring because you put it on sleep mode. You know, that gate keeps that whole interaction, right? No one should be calling you at 3 in the morning. You should be sleeping, right? If it's if you have your busy icon on, like you said, I can finish my task instead of actually finding myself distracted by pop-ups. My phone is quiet, it's helping me to stay focused. So like I said, we too are responsible, and sometimes we are the ones that we need to first check on before we can
yeah.
look outside and say, okay, how is the external environment impacting me in my career and in my well-being? Firstly, what am I
Yeah.
doing that could be actually hurting me as well?
So basically, you could be on a wrong career, but if you set measures, you could also survive. Is that what you say?
Absolutely, because I don't think there's a career or a sector now where people are just having it easy, right?
Smooth sailing.
I don't think it exists. So we need these things, no matter where we are. We need these
Mm,
these boundaries, these parameters that we set for ourselves as well as for others
mm,
to help us to then feel like we are succeeding, feel like we are thriving in this workplace, feel like
mm,
we are not sacrificing our mental health for the sake of being, model employees.
yeah, yeah. Now, you work at schools, at a school, ne? Um, how do you see? Although we're talking about careers, but the students, how do they cope? Do you think they're coping with the current curriculum? Does it affect their mental wellness?
Yes, it
And
does.
and, and what are the teachers doing, or your department? What does it do to help them?
Yeah, I mean, I think young people have been struggling, but I think they are struggling even more now since 2020. So since the pandemic.
Mm,
or the outbreak of COVID-19, we firstly, young people lost a lot of learning time that year. Not all schools were able to quickly adapt and find an. I mean, even though they did adapt quickly and get onto virtual platforms and all that, even those schools, it still took the young people some time to adapt to that way of learning where I don't see my teacher anymore. I get a lot of work, written down and explained in an email, and I have to figure it out. And so we lost
Mm.
time. We lost learning time, let me put it like that. And therefore, there are young people who are finding themselves behind. Even though that year they were in class, they were learning, they even got a pass grade in their report, they are behind. They missed fundamental concepts and theories. And so they are behind. They are catching up. 2021, they were catching up. This year, they've been catching up. Um, so, firstly, that's what I'm seeing happening. And then the other thing that I'm seeing happening is that the isolation actually triggered quite a bit of anxiety and depression in our young people. I think we have record breaking statistics right now on how depression and anxiety is at an all-time high amongst young people who are in university or who are in late in their high school years, so who've been directly affected by COVID-19. And we are also seeing quite a high number of suicide thoughts. So even if they're not
Mm.
acting on them, but a lot of young people are feeling quite hopeless to the point where they do imagine that what if I just didn't exist, you know, then I would feel better,
Mm.
you know. So really the last 2 years have done a number on mental health in teenagers. And I think many parents have not been aware of that or have taken it for granted. They've thought, oh, but we're back in normal life now. Like we can go anyway, let's keep going. But look at your child, see, a lot of young people were not socialites, but were comfortable around people. But all of a sudden, being
Mm.
around people is anxiety provoking. You know, a lot of young people are struggling with mood regulation. Oh, are you one of those who used to be able to go out and be okay, but now it's like we're going to work, yeah, and it's a very normal reaction. That the isolation almost normalized you being by yourself, and now having to go to people
Mm.
feels like the abnormal thing to do, right?
Yeah.
The isolation in other people created that sense of loneliness and a deep loneliness that has
Mm.
created episodes of depression and mood dysregulation, and then of
Mm.
course like suicidal thoughts and all those things are as a result of those mental health challenges.
And
So
and
now
then
you
from
can
there, they
imagine.
have to choose a career.
Yeah, so now you can imagine a young person who's dealing with anxiety, who's dealing with depression, having to function in class and do their best.
Yeah.
It's almost a ridiculous thing to ask, but we are asking it. Right now,
Mm.
matrics are writing exams. We are
Mm.
asking them to be on form at their best. But how many of them are wrestling with this underneath the surface, you know? And then right there, they're applying
Mm.
for university because next year they must be sitting in a lecture room somewhere in the country as first years,
Mm.
you know. So this
I
thing
think this
where
anxiety,
mm,
you know, I think it
yeah,
not just affects the student, it also affects the parents, because being a parent looking at your child changing their moods like that, I believe it's not something very nice to see. I don't have children. I would not say anything more of it, but I've been a child before, and you're able to see your parents looking at you with concern,
mm,
because of how now you change the way you do things. So mental wellness really it doesn't have an age limit. It goes across the board, from children to adulthood, and when you start adulting now, another ball game. You can't go back and say, no, I quit. You know, I want to be a child. I'm tired of being an adult. So we really need to take care of our wellness. Really, um,
We do.
the things that we do, our decisions, really hinges on our mental wellness. And if
Absolutely.
we're not right emotionally, it is quite damaging. And you can imagine the people around you that have to associate with you in that condition. It also adds, you know, more stress on them as well, uh, than it does on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
my let's see, like my, you know, advice would be firstly to parents
Mm,
that if you if you yourself are feeling different since 2020,
mm,
pay attention to that, and explore it, hopefully with a trained professional. There are a few free services in the country that we can access. And then secondly, if you see it in your child, normalize it, don't point it out as bad behavior, or as "Ah,
mm,
you've changed, you're being weird, come
mm,
out, let's all hang out,
mm,
but actually spend time with the child to try and understand, why are you isolating, why don't you feel comfortable around people, you used to laugh more, what's
what's
going
on their
on.
mind? Mm,
And if your child sees you looking for mental health support, then they will also be more comfortable doing it, because they'll see you modeling that this is a normal thing to
mm,
do. It's like going to the doctor. If we're sick physically, we are more than willing to go see a doctor. You know,
yeah.
we're more than willing. We'll call an ambulance, we'll drag you to the car, but nobody will leave you to just lie on the bed while you are physically sick. So let's think
Mm,
of mental well being the same way, right? It's just as important,
mm,
if not more, than our physical well being, to be honest. Because a lot of people who are sick physically in hospitals will tell you that once I got out of the hospital and I wasn't so surrounded by sick people and my mood lifted, I started to heal faster or get better quicker. So our mind is
mm,
very powerful.
mm,
Let's take care of our minds. Let's nurture our minds. And let's not be
yeah.
ashamed or embarrassed that our mind is not working the way it used to. Instead, let's try and figure out how to get it back there, or how to help it where it is to be its best.
Yeah. Mandisa, thank you so much for all the insight that you imparted to us. We are now able to see that career path has a great impact on our mental wellness. And being parents, encouraging your children to take a certain course of a path, might for them affect them in the long run, that now they have done something that you want and not what they want. Maybe sitting down with them and then reasoning on what they can do to survive the future. Because honestly, we're not working because it's fun. We're working to provide. So if you providing, doing something that you like or you love, or something that you can bear, it's better than providing with something that you don't like, that you despise, because now that will lead you to depression and all of that. So
Mm,
parents, is very important, please sit down with your children. And just a disclaimer, our show is not giving out medical advice or anything of that nature. We only talking about these things to make you aware. And once you are aware and you can identify things that you can correct in your household, or for yourself, then you seek professional help. And then that is what it's going to take you. So we're not providing any of that, but only insight on these things. Thank you so much, Mandisa, for honoring this invitation. We enjoyed it, and hopefully we can have you over next show
Yeah,
in the future, where we can talk more on this. Because I noticed on your status there, or your description on your LinkedIn, you're also talking about child protection. That's what you do, your health and wellness system in schools. So quite a variety of things that you're doing that it can be helpful for our audience when we invite you in the near future. So thank you so much.
absolutely. I
Eh?
would love to talk about those things in the future.
Any any closing words? 2 minutes for our audience.
No, just I think just thank you for listening. I hope you found this helpful, and like Neil said, I hope that it's building awareness and helping you to reach out to professionals. Yeah, and yeah, all the best to everybody out there.
All right, thank you. So you're listening, or you were listening to NMP Talk Show. We were streaming on Telegram. We were streaming on Twitter. We also streamed on Facebook, and later on, you can catch this recorded show on our YouTube channel, which is wow, that went out of my head. Oh, our YouTube channel is Get Informed
From
Too,
two,
T
yeah.
double O. Yeah, T double O. So Get Informed Too. You see the pun there. No pun intended. You can catch the recorded show on there. You can catch us on Apple Podcast. You can catch us on Spotify. You can catch us on Google Podcast. You can catch us on Amazon. So almost everywhere possible on these platforms, we will be there. So you don't miss out. You get informed. And until we see you next time, my name is Neo Morapedi, and then this is how we're signing out.
So last